Here we go. Hello, everybody. Hi, this is Kathy, as many of you know, and we are going to see, that's what I mean about me not getting this quite right. Okay, I'm going to stop this again and start to share. It's my, there we go. Okay. So today we're going to talk about how Pluto is going into Aquarius. And it's happening for the first time in about 250 years. And the last time it happened was during the American Revolution. So anyway, here we go. Once again, technology. Since Aquarius is about technology, I hope that you all are being patient with me because for some reason, I cannot get this share to stop. So 1 second. And we will try it again.
Stop sharing and you're back with us.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm trying to find, okay, so we've already skipped to that. Okay. Anyway, sorry for the technological mishap. That's me. I'm here by myself. So if you noticed on the first frame, I had Pluto and Aquarius, and then I had a picture of the Statue of Liberty and at sunset, in a red sunset. And that's because we are at a very defining moment in our world history. As you all know, obviously, right? Jean Houston, the wonderful psychologist, says that this is the time when the possible human is about to become real. And it's a time when we have to, when instead of having nature, Kathy, you got to put off your camera. It's the time when human beings have to evolve. It's not about nature evolving or the environment evolving anymore. And so it's really up to us to take a stand right now. Now, we've talked about the age of Aquarius. I'm going to talk about the age of Aquarius just a tiny bit. Are we already in it? A lot of people think we are, even though the constellation of Aquarius isn't quite lined up yet with the spring equinox. But we can see that we are doing it imaginally and spiritually, okay? A lot of us from the 60s remember Hair, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and it's become the myth that's taking us forward into the future. And we're the forerunners of the Aquarian age, you could say, whether it's literally beginning now, it's going to last about 2,000 years. And so we're the grandmothers and the grandfathers of the Aquarian age, and we're called on to imagine how we want this age to shape up. I was doing just a quick lookup of Steve Bannon, that right-wing guy who was Donald Trump's advisor, and he is an occultist. He's one of those Manly Hall, Madame Blavatsky kind of followers, and people like him want a new age too, and they see our age as sort of broken down and not quite working, and they're working towards some kind of a spiritual awakening. Unfortunately, to me, it's a spiritual awakening within the confines of patriarchy. And the rest of us are trying to awaken to a new age, which is going to feel a little different, not run by corporations, not run by white men, not run by Christianity. And so are we going to have some kind of dystopian nightmare in the future with some of these guys, in Hungary and in Russia and Israel and in America wanting to create a new world order? Or are we going to create the new world order ourselves? So we have to imagine better and deeper. I know that I'm not a Trekkie, but I'm sort of a Trekkie. And to me, Star Trek is a perfect example of what we can become: responsible, grown-up human beings. So anyway, with Pluto going, first of all, today, Pluto and the sun came together at 29 degrees Capricorn, the very end of the sign of Capricorn. And so it's really about Capricorn we say it's about corporations, and I'll discuss it later on, and government, but really on one level, it's about our dharma. It's about what we're supposed to contribute to our civilization. And so today, with the Sun and Pluto meeting still in Capricorn, the Sun already went into Aquarius this morning. Pluto will go into Aquarius tonight. We are being asked, are we willing and able to shoulder the responsibility of our world? Are we going to do it? So we're beginning a 20-year period in which we have to evolve the collective mind. To me, Aquarius is the collective mind. And we have to evolve it out of nationalism and fear and bigotry and domination and separateness and patriarchal domination. And to me, it's sort of a Newtonian belief of cause and effect into a more quantum mindset, where we understand that we're all one, we're all connected, that this is about community, and it's about developing our mental and emotional powers. And the other thing is, I think that what's going to happen is we're going to develop our magic again, okay? I believe magic comes from when we connect to Mother Earth, when we find our place once again in Mother Earth's biosphere. When we become the stewards of this beautiful planet that we live on. And we certainly haven't been very good stewards, have we? The patriarchy is like a bunch of college guys at a dorm with beer pong and throwing all their wrappers on the floor. They are not taking care of Mother Earth. And so that's a big part of what's going to come in this next 20 years, is how are we going to evolve into a species that sees that everything is connected and that Mother Earth is here to help us create the magic that we need to create. Now, Carl Jung says that Aquarius, well, first of all, the Aquarius, we talk about it, and I know the Greek myths. It's about a young boy, Ganymede, being taken up into Olympus to be the bearer of the wine cup. And so we see the man pouring out the waters, but it's really, the waves aren't waters, it's energy, it's prana. And Carl Jung says that it's about pouring out the archetypes, that we are finally going to make the archetypes conscious. Now, as you can see on this visible spectrum, he said, Carl Jung says, on one end, let's say the infrared end, that's an instinct. But at the other end of the spectrum is the archetype. So archetypes are the sort of collective structures of our instincts for life. And they're not just for humans, archetypes operate in the world at large. And so if the Aquarian age is when we pour out the contents of the unconscious and we become conscious of them through shadow work, through dream work, through working with archetypes, then we will grow up and become the possible human that we were meant to be. Now, one of the things I think is that as we leave the Piscean age, we need to know that we've learned the lessons of the Piscean age. And one of the lessons of the Piscean age is we are supposed to love each other. With love, all things are possible. If we don't know how to love ourselves and we can't love our neighbor, and we can't love the God force or the goddess force. So the lessons of the Piscean age is very much about delusion. A lot of times Christians talk about the Antichrist. It's not a person, it's our society. Our society is against the Christ consciousness. Our society right now only believes that whatever is material is the only thing that's real. Okay, whereas you'll see as I talk later, the Christ consciousness is about we are spirits. All of us know that, having a human experience. So that is the lesson that we have to learn in the Piscean age, that we are spirit and that our spirits are here to love. And you can see in the world that's not the priority of the powers that be, but I think it's the priority of all the rest of us. Now, the other thing with the age of Aquarius is that there's been a lot of activity in Aquarius lately. And 2 years ago, on winter solstice of 2020, I think it was 2020, Jupiter and Saturn, which are the social planets, which are 20 years, has a 20-year cycle, and talk about how the social systems we work with are energized. For the first time in 800 years, it went into an air sign. For the last 200 years, it's been in an earth sign. So everything's been about money and materiality. And maybe that's why we have forgotten that everything is spirit. I don't know why, but we have. So the big game changer of Aquarius is we have to shift the collective mind. Aha. So these are the gifts of the collective mind. And one of them is astrology and thinking outside the box. I mean, there's so many gifts that we could have that we see. It's about higher mind. It's about our intuition. It's about thinking outside the box, but letting our intuition feed us the information. And it's about being revolutionary. And that's what I think is important right now for all of us. How can we be revolutionary? It's about freedom, equality. You can see all of it. It's about, and it's interesting, but it's almost as if it's about that we have to connect to the cosmos. We have to discover our divine nature. And in some ways, not just discover it, because that to me is what we are doing in Pisces, but now we have to live it. Okay, we have to become a conscious humanity. And Aquarius is very much about idealism and also utopia. The image I love the best for Aquarius is the round table, where we all sit as equals, but we all are unique individuals and we all have something to bring to the table. And we learn to work together. And it's not just all about me or whoever is highest on the hierarchy, but it's about the common people. It's about how we all work together in community. You'll see that with Aquarius, we're going to have, it's about science and technology, outer space. But the other thing is, I think that we'll begin to develop telepathy and other forms of psychic powers that we used to call magic. And in some ways, it's about transpersonal love. Okay. So those are, to me, the gifts. See, Aquarius, to me, Pluto is, we're talking about how Pluto's going into Aquarius, but Pluto's energies are transformative. But Aquarius's purpose is to expand the collective mind, right? And when we get to Pluto, we'll see that Pluto is about a process. It's a process of something ending, something being rebirthed. So it's not a once and for all thing. And so going back to what the Aquarius initiation is, what beliefs do we have to let go of in order to create a better world, a world of plenty? Because we do have the resources to create heaven on earth. We just don't have the will. And we know that because there's a few people who have billions of dollars, and there's billions of people who have nothing. And we all know that isn't right. So that's the thing that we have to begin to change. Okay, we're not doing that. As you can see, my technological work is there. Okay, so Pluto, let's talk about Pluto. So we have Aquarius. Pluto is the caretaker of souls. It's an archetype of evolution, which involves death and rebirth. But in ancient times, Pluto wasn't the god of death. He was the god that took care of the realm of souls. So, it's important to make a distinction because there are people out there, some astrologers, which I hate to say, who have told clients of mine, oh, if Pluto's on your moon, you're going to die. And that's just bad astrology and it's bad counseling. Pluto says you need to evolve. You need to get down to the bare bones of who you really are. Okay. And it's so that you can live out your destiny. Jeff Green, who did a lot of work with Pluto, talks about Pluto as the energy of our destiny. Okay. So Pluto initiates us into our destiny. It strips us bare and it helps us focus our energy but for the welfare of the world. It's a collective planet. It's not necessarily personal, although we will experience it personally. Okay. So this is how Pluto works. It's a process. So first there's a disruption in the outer world, and that leads to a descent into the underworld. It's our initiation into a deeper consciousness of what our purpose is. And then we have to give up control there. And if you all know The Cloud of Unknowing, it was written by a mystic in the Middle Ages, but we have to be stripped bare of who we are, and we have to say, well, who am I really? We have to get down to the bones of things. Okay. And then when we do, there's this surge of energy again, because our soul remembers our mission, and it's reignited with passion. Okay. And we come back into life. I don't know about you, but in the last few years, me and a lot of other people have really felt like, well, where's my passion? I know I'm getting older, and so maybe that's part of it, but I had so much passion for so many things when I was younger. And in the last few years, it's sort of like it's banked. The coals are banked. And now with this energy coming in, it's going to come up again, I think. And we're going to say, there are reasons for us to be here right now. So as you all know, or you don't know, Pluto dredges up what isn't viable anymore. It says, okay, let's look at this and we're going to recycle it. Okay. It brings things into our consciousness that we can't sweep under the table anymore. And so we have to release it so we can have new growth. So we're going to talk about how it did that in Capricorn in a minute. This is the chart for Pluto entering Aquarius tonight. It conjuncted the sun, as I said earlier today, at the end of at the end of Capricorn. But if we look at this chart, there's just a few things that Pluto is connected to. It's in a beautiful relationship, a trine to the moon. So it says that emotionally, we are going to be much more passionate. And the moon is in Gemini, so we're going to be passionate about what we have to learn. And we're going to be passionate about what kind of vision we want for the future. Gemini is about our perception of the world and how we learn about the world and the categories we put things into in our world. So when your moon is there, I often think now lately about the moon as sort of the operating system that we come into the world with. And since this is a collective thing, the operating system is we need to tame our minds. Okay, because Gemini can skip all over the place. And learn a little bit about a lot of things, but we want to deepen our minds and we want to deepen our emotions. And then the other thing that Pluto is connected to is Jupiter and Taurus, which is going to, in a way, it's going to say you're going to succeed at what you do. If you step into your power, if you step into this whole vision of you have a destiny for the Aquarian age, to bring in the Aquarian age, it will work. So these are some of the archetypal energies of Pluto, which you all know it's death. It's an initiation into the depths. So it's about death and transformation, rebirth. Pluto is the god of hidden resources, which I'll talk to you about later. It's about truth, evolution, sex, and ancestors go in there as well, ancient things, primal power. But it also, all archetypes can have a positive or negative expression. Archetypes are just structures of reality that we fit our individual energies into. Okay, so you can have an archetype of the mother, but it's your experience of your mother that will fill in that archetype and how you relate to mothering, love, self-confidence, self-worth. In the same way, Pluto can emerge as this great transformative energy, or it can come out as cruelty and violence and domination and obsession and rage. And we see that happening in our world right now, don't we? So let's see if I can. Okay, so to understand Pluto better, we have to understand that he was called the unseen one. He had a magical helmet that made him invisible, but he also was the giver of wealth and the caretaker of souls. So in his realm, in that underworld realm, was where everybody sort of went and hung out after they let go of their bodies. Okay. and waited for renewal, waited for rebirth. So one of the myths is Pluto and Persephone. I'm not going to go into the whole myth, but Persephone is the spring maiden. So on one level, it was a myth about the seasons, how in the spring, new life comes out of the earth and grows. There's a harvest, and then at the end of the growing season, the energy goes back down into the earth. And so Persephone is pulled down there. I think it's a patriarchal retelling of the myth that Pluto ravished her away, because originally Persephone was the one who was the ruler of the underworld. Her mother Demeter ruled the outer world, and Persephone ruled the underworld, or the inner world. Then we have the idea of Jesus the Christ. After he was killed, he goes down into the underworld and then he returns. And one of the biggest problems with Christianity is that they chose the crucifixion as their main symbol rather than the resurrection, because basically that was the whole story. That, guess what? You can die to the world, but you have a spirit that goes on. Then we have the myth of Inanna, who goes willingly into the underworld to meet her sister Ereshkigal, and she comes up renewed and sends down what has not been renewed, which was her husband in the myth. There's another thing that I think, okay, and then I'm going to skip this, but then the hidden wealth part of Hades or Pluto. It was about all the hidden wealth under the earth. It was about agricultural fertility, but it's also about the hidden wealth within us, in our unconscious. I don't know if any of you had dreams about finding jewels, about dragons, about all of these energies that live within the unconscious, but Pluto rules those too. The other thing I'm wondering about is two things. I'm wondering if Pluto is very much like Anun, the Celtic god of the other world, the fairy realm, and also the shamanistic underworld, which is where all of the energies of the earth are. And that's where magic occurs, because once we connect to that grid, you could say, of Mother Earth's energy, that's when we can create magic. So one of the questions you might ask yourself is, who is ruling your own underworld? What's the sign in the house of your natal Pluto? Because that's going to be the focus of what you learn on this journey that you're going to go on, back to the future. Okay. So anyway, one of the things we have to realize is right now we are in the cyclical energy of the Pluto-Uranus cycle, which started in the 60s. And it was a conjunction in Virgo. Whenever we have Pluto, the energy of evolution, and Uranus, the planet, the energy of revolution, coming together, there are new things happen. It changes the world. Richard Tarnas has gone back to he's traced this back to Spartacus, the slave who revolted against Rome back whenever BC, 100 BC. So there are these cyclical energies that bring the world, evolve the world. And the Uranus-Pluto cycle is definitely a big evolver. And the interesting thing is that we went through the first square of those two energies from 2012 to 2015, and it hit 7 times. Now, all of you who know astrology know that planets seem to go retrograde. And so a lot of times they'll hit a point 3 times. They'll hit it going forward, they'll hit it as it's retrograding, and then it hit it again. Well, these two planets hit each other 7 times, which is the number of initiation. Okay. And so we were being initiated into, are we going to wake up? Capricorn is the sign, if we just take it in a mundane level, it's the sign of our government and our financial systems and our corporations. But Aries is the sign of our individual bravery and our quest for our own identity. And so, we had those 7 squares, and then what happened? The shit hit the fan. And now we see the underbelly of our whole social system, how, where we've come from, and also who wants to take us back, into an old place. So as you can see, we're going to talk about it. Pluto in Capricorn, there's so much happened during the years that Pluto was in Capricorn. So it's the sign of our social order. It's our governments, finances, corporations, institutions. So it began in 2008 with the financial crisis. Duh, that was a big sign, wasn't it? It was a big sign that said things aren't going right, but they didn't handle it well. I always say if I was the president, I would have given everybody $50,000 in credit to pay off your debts. We could have laundered the money to the banks and everybody would have been happy. But it wasn't about us. It was about keeping the social order intact. And so they let go of us. They let go of everybody else and demolished so many people's lives to save banks. Then Pluto was in Capricorn from 2008 to 2000, well, today, 2024. So then we had the Mayan calendar, which was interesting, okay, because there's this sense of a whole renewal of a cycle. And then we had the Pluto-Uranus square during Pluto and Capricorn. And then we had in 2020, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter conjuncting at about 23, 24 Capricorn, which hadn't happened since Luther pinned his articles of revolt on the, cathedral door back in 1500 or whenever. So a lot of these big changes, happened during Capricorn because we need to change our society. The thing I found very interesting was that on the day of the U.S. Pluto return, because it returns every 248 years, it was in February of 2022. That's when the Ukrainian war started. And it's interesting because in a way, it's like a proxy. They're fighting for their independence. And isn't that what we did back 248 years ago? And then there were quite a few bank failures in the last year, which didn't get a lot of news, but it happened. So anyway, here are the dates when Pluto is going to be in Aquarius this year. Last year, from March 23rd to June 11th, just for a couple of months, Pluto tiptoed into Aquarius and went back into Capricorn. Then today and tomorrow, till September 3rd, Pluto will be in Aquarius. But from September 3rd to November 20th, Pluto is going to be in Capricorn again, which is going to be interesting, I think, because that's, of course, the US election. And I think that it's going to be, disregarding, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, it is going to be up to us to choose. What do we want? Do we want freedom? Do we want to change our government to make it by the people and for the people? Or are we going to let it go on and have corporations and dominate us? And to me, corporations and rich people, they're like the King George, that we revolted against in the American Revolution. So it just seems synchronistic that we are back to a place where we have to decide, do we want to be taxed? And so that our tax money goes to create bombs that go and kill young children and people in other countries? Do we want our tax money to support, okay, give benefits to oil and gas companies? Do we want our money to go towards things that aren't helpful to us? And maybe we need a tax revolt like we did back 248 years ago when they revolted against the stamp tax, or the Boston Tea Party. So any of those things, they're resonating, they're synchronistically resonating. So anyway, when it goes back into Aquarius, Pluto on November 20th of this year, it's going to be there till March 9th of 2043. Imagine being there. And then for a little while, it's going to go into Pisces. And then it's going to go back into Aquarius from September 2nd, 43 to January 20th, 2044. And hopefully most of us will still be alive and we will be there to see that this 20-year process of changing the collective mind actually worked. And it's really up to us to begin to do that within our own lives. So these are the possibilities that I can foresee with this next 20 years, that we create a new mindset. We have to get rid of old ideas and beliefs, and you all know what they are. religious beliefs that hate each other, beliefs that capitalism is the only way to go, beliefs that this is the only world we have. I think a lot of people, as many of you know me, so I'm going to repeat it. I think we're a death culture. We're so afraid of death that we have created death all around us. Okay, we've made death a really horrific thing, whether it's in our collective unconsciousness, think that we're all going to burn in hell, or at least in purgatory, that the bad people, if we're bad at all, we're going to burn. Who would want to die if they thought that was coming afterwards? But because of that, we have created death in the environment. We've created death in our bodies. We've created death for other people. So we need a different mindset. There's going to definitely be advances in science and medicine and technology. I saw a little article the other day that someone thinks they have a cure for cancer, which would be wonderful. And basically, it's a cure that would tell your own cells, these are bad cells, the cancer cells, because right now our bodies can't tell the difference. And so they would attack the cancer cells and kill them. And of course, we're going to have technology that's going to heal the environment. The Aquarian possibility for freedom. We have to learn independence, and we have to not be afraid to explore, think outside the box. We hopefully will enshrine human rights and nature's rights all over the world. I think it's going to be a time of expanded consciousness where we explore other realities, whether UFOs finally show up, whether we all start talking. I would love to have the internet. I would just love to be able to talk to each and every one of you in my mind, rather than having to use technology. The other side of it is we have to tame our use of technology. It would be really good if they shut down all of the technology for a couple hours every day, or at night at least. I wonder if that is affecting our sleep. There's all different things that we have to understand better. We've rushed in like a bunch of teenagers. Look at our toys. Yippee, this is so great. But we didn't really look at the results of what would happen. A big thing is that we are going to dismantle social hierarchies, because it's going to be about us, we the people, the good of the many rather than the good of the few. Hopefully we will have a lot of much better renewable energy. We will figure it out. I saw a little article about people saying that solar energy isn't good in the cold. And then it said, but look, the space station has been up in the sky for 30 years using solar panels, and they're in outer space, which is really cold. So we have to learn to use these new technologies. We also are going to have some, Aquarius is so connected to utopian ideals. And that often comes in the sense of communities, beginning communities that that sort of live a purpose, have a specific purpose. Although it will also be a good time to go back into the communities we live in and actually participate in them. I don't know if any of you have heard of the place called Damanhur in Italy, but they carved a whole mountain out and created this amazing temple to mankind. And there's sort of an intentional community in northern Italy. But we've been doing that since the 70s. But here, once again, is this Aquarian potential. The biggest thing is religious tolerance. We have to get rid of these crazy patriarchal religions that think they're better than everybody else. There's going to be a lot of impacts in our social and political reality. Okay. Maybe we will become one world, but hopefully we will not become the new world order that the Bushes and the corporations want. But we will begin to maybe have small communities like the nation states we used to have, but connected, maybe like the EU, all of these nations that used to fight each other are operating together, but we are going to have an interconnected world. So we're going to take a trip back in a couple minutes to 1778. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So 1778 to 1797 is when Pluto was last in Aquarius. And the Age of Enlightenment happened back there. So rationality. Of course, Aquarius is a fixed sign, a fixed air sign. So it's very much about principles and idealism, okay, and abstract principles at that. It can get rigid and have rigid beliefs, but and it can be dogmatic. So it could go bad, right? But it could be wonderful. It could be much more about how do we bring in a more enlightened, heartfelt age. Friends of mine used to call it the age of endarkenment, which I loved, because what we did was we rejected the imagination, which is the basis of everything. And that's going to be one of the things that gets us through this next 20 years, is accessing the potential of working with the creative imagination. So then we have the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783. We have the French Revolution from 1789 to 1799. We had the Haitian Revolution, which was a slave revolution, and they threw off their masters, which was great, from 1791 to 1804. The Industrial Revolution started in about 1760, so it was really picking up speed by the time it got to 1778. The Articles of Confederation were written in 1777 to 1781, and then the U.S. Constitution was not written until in 1787 to 90. So for a few years there, all the different states in the United States were doing their own thing. They hadn't really come together until the U.S. Constitution was written. And these are some of the things that were invented last time. So the sewing machine, there goes, that's the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. But the first flight in a hot air balloon happened then, the first time anyone left the gravity of the earth. Parachutes, the smallpox vaccine. Bifocals were invented then because, of course, the astronomers in an earlier time had worked on the lenses for microscopes to look into the world. Automatic flour mills were invented then, so we had the milling process changed. The cotton gin, which once again, machines, but I read that cupcakes were invented back then too. I thought that was kind of cute. Also during that time, the planet Uranus, which rules Aquarius, was discovered by William Herschel. And it changed our view of the solar system, because before then, we thought that our solar system consisted of only the 7 planets out to Saturn. And so Saturn was a boundary. And that's why we often talk about Saturn as the tester, the one who gives us limits, the one who gives us boundaries, because it used to be a boundary. Mary Wollstonecraft, okay, wrote The Vindication for the Rights of Women. It was all about, she argued that women were equal to men. We just weren't educated. We weren't allowed the education they were. She was quite the lady. Look her up, but it's one of the first feminist books around that were written. And she was the mother of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, just that. Back then, in Britain, they established the Committee for the Abolition of the Slave Trade. And interestingly enough, during the end of this century of the 1700s, Eastern religions and philosophy first came to Europe. So there was a lot of interesting, mind-opening things that went on that changed the collective mindset of that time onto our time. But now we're at the next stage. So this was the whole point. That's just the information, but this is what I would love us to do. We are going to go on a shamanic journey. We are going to do a past life regression, if you will. And we're going to go back to 1776 to 1778 to 1797 and see if we live then. Some people have written to me that they don't want to do that, and that's perfectly okay. Whether you had an incarnation back here in the Americas during that time, whether you had an incarnation in another country of maybe of your origin, if you're French, if you're Italian, maybe you lived then and participated, or if you go back and maybe talk to an ancestor. Because what did we learn back then that we can bring into our lives right now? one of the big things that has happened, I think, during the last 200 or 300 years is we've been cut off from our instincts. To go back to what I talked about with Carl Jung, the spectrum of instinct to archetype, we are so disconnected from our instincts. Do you all remember, like, was it in the early 2000s when there was a tsunami and people just stood there as the waters were pulled away from the beach? They never even thought to run. It was only the native people and the animals that ran to the hills. We have lost touch with our embodied instincts. And believe it or not, even though Aquarius is an air sign, it is during Aquarius that we are going to be embodied. We're going to embody both the spirit, but we're going to embody it in a conscious way. So there's the archetypes right there. And whenever any of us work with our spirit guides or our spirit animals, that's the way that we are reconnecting to our instincts. Because our bodies aren't, we're not listening when our bodies go away, run, run. So we have to do it in a different way. We have to do it through the imagination. So everybody take a minute to go take a breath, to go if you need to get in a comfortable chair, if you need to go to the bathroom. We're going to do a few minutes of breathing to center ourselves and calm ourselves, and then we are going to prepare for our journey. Okay? So I'm going to give you a minute to settle in. Okay, so we're going to do just very basic breathing. So I'd like you to breathe in for 5.5. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and. So we're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out. And we're going to do this for about 3 minutes because 3, of course, is the number of process. It's the goddess number. And so as we breathe, we're going to come back into the body. And we are going to center ourselves so that we can take this mystical, magical trip. So wherever you are, if you're laying down, if you're sitting up, put your feet on the floor and close your eyes and start to breathe, and breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. There's a beautiful book by James Nestor called Breath, which I recommend to everybody. I have never realized how breathing is so can be so complex and interesting, but it's important that we breathe right. So let's start. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and. Now, as you're breathing, I want you to relax. As you breathe in, feel the places in your body that are tense. And as you breathe out, let go of the tension. As you breathe in, send the breath to the part of your body that's tense. And as you breathe out, let go of the tension. As you breathe in, roll it way down with your diaphragm down into your belly. Then release it out. And imagine when you're breathing in, you can pull up energy from the earth through your feet. and release it out through your heart. You can breathe in energy down from the heavens through your crown chakra, and you can release it out through your feet. Be playful. That's one of the things that's so important. The imagination wants to come back. It wants to wake it up again. We've relegated it to the nursery and it doesn't belong there. The creative imagination is how we create. And so we will keep breathing and play with your breath. Own it, love it. It's what gives you life. If you don't have air to breathe, you die very quickly. Now, I hope you're all getting relaxed. Okay. So we're all going to get on. We're all going to get on. Well, I skipped over it. I really wanted to show it to you. We're all going to get on the on a train. Okay. I have to laugh. Okay. Really and truly, I have to laugh. I wanted to show you something, and it's not happening. Sorry, it's not going away. Okay. I wanted to get a picture of the of a train.
Kathy,
Yeah.
Kathy, take it down, go to the page, you go to the Hogwarts train, and then
Well, I
you
can't find it.
get it.
I can't find it, so you're just gonna have me. I was looking for a picture of a fast train, and I decided we're going on the Hogwarts train. So everybody go to the gate 9.5 or 9 3/4, and imagine that you're getting on the Hogwarts train. Okay. Okay. So are you on? Okay. So one of the things that we are going to do is imagine that we're going back in time. You're on the train, you're taking off. The train is heading back into the past so we can go into the future. So as you're sitting there, imagine that you're starting to speed up. We're going back into the 2000 teens. We're going back into the 2000s. We're going back into the 1990s, the 1980s, the 1970s, the 1960s. We're going back to the 1900s. We're going back to the 1980s. We're going back to the 1800s. We're going back to the 1880s and the 1860s and the 1840s and the 1820s and the 1800s. And now we're back where Pluto was in Aquarius. So we're back in 1778. And now the train is starting to slow down and you can jump off whenever you want. So we're back to 1778, 1798, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91. Hop off whenever you feel like it. 89, 1788, 87, 86, 85, 84, 83, 82, 81, 1780, 1779, and 1778. So for those of you who aren't quite sure about how to do journeys or past life regressions, you can look down and see if you're clothed differently, look at your feet, see if you're in any kind of shoes or any kind of different outfit, see if you're a man or a woman, or if you're going to do a shamanic journey to your other self, see if you can talk to them. I'm going to give you a beat for about 5 minutes and do your journey. begin to end your talk. Thank whoever came to you. Ask them if they have advice or any more gifts that they want to give to you. Keep your eyes closed, because we're going to get back on the Hogwarts Express, and we're going to come back to the present any minute now. So if you will, imagine that you're on the express. Okay, you're seated down, keep your eyes closed, and in a minute we're going to start back to the future. Okay, so you're in the train. We're in 1778, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 1790, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 6, 97. I hope we've picked you all up, because now we're going to race into the future. 1800, 1820, 1840, 1860, 1880, 1900, 1920, 1940, 1960, 1980, 2000, 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2022, 2023, 2024. And you're back. Take a moment, open your eyes. And write down, take a moment, unless you don't have anything here. Take a moment to write down what you learned during your journey. I keep going back to the swamp fox. Somebody, Marion, and I feel like that's sort of my thing, a hit and run kind of thing. The resistance you could think of, rather than an army, somebody in the army. But we all have a different connection to what being a revolutionary is. So whether you were a writer like Thomas Paine, if you were like Alexander Hamilton or Thomas Jefferson, John Hancock, maybe you were a leader, maybe you were Betsy Ross, maybe you were one of the women who supported the war, maybe you were one of the feminists, maybe you were an astronomer like William Herschel, maybe you invented something. What is it that your soul knows from ancient times, specifically that ancient time? And what does it want you to bring up to the present? Okay, so I'm going to let you all do that as I finish up talking. The thing that we all need to know right now is that the next 20 years is going to be very important for the whole world. And we know it because of the climate crisis. We know it because of the wars that are going on right now. But mostly we know it in our hearts because we want a better world. And if we want a better world, we have to be part of making it, and making it so. So in what way can you be a part of making this world a better world? I would say to you that it would help if you knew your astrology chart, and if you know where your own personal Pluto is. For the most part, there's a few of us here that might be older than the baby boomers. So you might have Pluto in Cancer, but the baby boomers have Pluto in Leo. And then I don't know all the generations, but then we have Generation X, I guess, is the Virgo ones, but we have the kids that have Pluto in Libra, which is where they changed the focus of relationship out of man and woman into multiple different ways of having relationships, since Libra is the sign of partnerships. Then we had the Pluto and Scorpio generation, who, got into sex, and we had the AIDS epidemic, and we had the whole sexual revolution, and then the kids that were born in the Pluto and Sagittarius, which is where we question everything. And then these new children are going to be born with Pluto. Then we have the kids that were born with Pluto and Capricorn, who are going to be the new world leaders probably. And then we have the new children who will be born with Pluto and Aquarius, and they will be the visionaries. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I am going to stop the recording